All right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome back. It's your. So we left off. We just did the Mishnah. So we got into this conversation.
What page?
Uh, Kuf Aleph. We left off at Kuf Aleph, which is Friday's daf.
Kuf Aleph. Okay.
Kuf Aleph. So over there.
Amud Aleph.
Yeah.
Okay.
So right. So we discussed a person he buys a mara or a crypt, an area to bury the dead, and what the descriptions were. So we had a machlokes between we did the Mishnah, right? As I recall, because I've been teaching a different group over Shabbos and Yom Tov. So all right. So now there was a machlokes between the Rabbanon and Rabbi Shimon. Basically, Rabbanon held that these crypts were an area of 4x6, and basically the Rabbanon held there were two of them per chatzer. And there's a nice picture on Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph in the Rashbam of the top one is according to the Rabbanon. In other words, so you have 8 graves. Now remember, these graves, that's basically they bury down like into a bunker, into a crypt, and therefore they sort of slide the bodies, into the walls, right? So there's 8 on one side, 8 on the other side, with the chutzner in the middle. Rabbi Shimon says, no. It's not 4x6. It's 6x8. By the way, it's not you're just surrounded by 8. It's surrounded by 13, right? It goes 4, 4, and 3 with 2 by the entrance. We'll soon see where they are identified. You can already sort of see in the picture where they're going to ultimately end up, according to the Rashbam. And not only that, there weren't just 2 connected to the chutzner. There were actually 4. So that was the Mishnah. So Zak the Gemara, Sahani Tre Kuf Aleph Amud Aleph, and away we go. Sahani Tre Lehecha Shadi Lahu. So these 2 extra ones that I just mentioned by Rabbi Shimon. So we said there was 4, 4, and 3. Morning, you go. We just started. 4, 4, and 3, which is 11. So you need 2 more, 13. So where do those 2 single ones stand? So if we're talking about basically back towards the entrance, right? Kamidashi luhu, right? If it's by the entrance, and we say that, remember, this chutzir is above, right? And then you come down and you have like the 2 crypts on the side, and according to Rabbi Shimon, there's 4 crypts. So, but if you have the 2 graves coming back by the entrance, so you sort of trample upon them, right? When you enter into this mara, right? So when you enter the mara, you're going to go ahead and destroy it, right? You're going to trample upon it if it's by the entrance. And furthermore, tonight we learned in a Mishnah, chatzar kever, all right, if you're standing in the chatzar, right, which is above, right, above ground, then you're tower. Now, if these 2 graves were buried by the entrance side, they would actually be underneath the chatzir, and the result that the person above, right, midrabanan, is considered to be basically in a basic kfar, so it would become tamei. So how can it say tower? So Rabbi Yisrael Chanina Diavelu Kamin Nagar. Oh no, maybe we're talking about a case instead of the other 2, they're basically going down perpendicular into the ground. So Gemara says, wait, you're going to bury bodies like that? Right? That's how you bury donkeys. You don't bury humans, right? Perpendicular into the ground. You place them horizontal into the ground, not perpendicular down like a bolt into the floor. So the Rabbi Yechon, so according to Rabbi Yechon, what would he answer? Devalahu bekeren zavis, right? He would put it at the corner, right? The Rashbam actually has a picture, right, by the little aleph, right? You put it at the corner over there. All right. In other words, the corner, the opposite corner where you enter, right? You enter one side and you have 4 on the right, 4 on the left, according to Rabbi Shimon, and 3 ahead. And the 2 single ones each go, by the left corner and the right corner. So the Gemara says, Dila, the Gemara says, well, timeout. So now we never really covered this when we did the Mishnah on the other day, because we sort of flew through it to try and get a little bit ahead. But basically, the reason that they have it is each kever is 1 amma wide. It was mentioned in the Mishnah. Okay, what it doesn't mention in the Mishnah, there was an amma in between each one. Okay, so if you have, let's say the wall according to Rabbi Shimon was 8, and there's 4 kfarim in there, you have 3 spaces in between, right? You have space between 1 and 2, space between 2 and 3, and space between 3 and 4. Each one is an amma for kfarim. plus 3 spaces in between. That's 7. That's 7 amos out of the 8. So there's 2 halves at the end. All right. So you have 2 halves at the end, and then you also have by the 6, right? The other side, it was 6 by 8. You have a 3 in there with 2 in between. That's 5 with 2 halves at the end. So all you have is 2 halves at the end. So how could you have 2 halves at the end and also be able to fit an entire kever with space on the side by the corner? Right? That doesn't work. There's not enough space there because right, it's not there. They're going to be touching one another. You're supposed to have spaces in between the kvarim. Some Ravashi, but what we're talking about over here, it must be that they're different heights. Now, remember, we said it's, imagine like a bunker, and they're built into the wall. So it could be that the ones on the sides are 2 feet off the ground, and the ones in front are 4 feet off the ground, right? So therefore, they don't overlap. And what's a good proof for that? Right, let's turn back at that picture. Actually, there's something that the article have it, but you can go back and even the picture of the Rashba. Right? You look at Rabbi Shimon now. Look how many of them overlap according to Rabbi Shimon. When you have all around, how do they overlap? You have bodies into other bodies. Which body goes? What's going on there? How could you fit bodies? That are cross one another, right? Right, they would bump into one another. So Gemara says, "Ela b'mamik." Rather, over there, Rabbi Shimon must be at different heights in the levels. In other words, one is 2 feet off the ground, the other one's 4 feet off the ground. This way, they get a little bit overlap, right, and therefore they wouldn't come in contact. So to over here by the corners, we can say one side was higher, the other side was lower, and then let's say you put the one that's on an angle in the middle. Rav Huna Berei Yeshua Amar. He says, Arba Marais Rabbi Shimon Davalahu Ki Charusa. It's done like a palm tree, like almost like a like a broom, right? So in other words, things that are sort of like a fan, right, sort of sticking out. So you look at the picture Gimel and the Rashbam. Those of you at the art scroll, it's like the one, all the stuff on the side. In other words, you don't have, right, with the 2 sides are perpendicular crossing over one another. Rather, they're all in like the same angle, like at 45 degrees like that. And everything is good, right? And do you want to calculate it? Don't calculate it. Just take it for take it for simplicity, in theory.
But it is larger surface.
So let's see.
A little bit larger.
So let's see. We're gonna see right now. So
the top ones you said are different levels. Is there any minimum how much there has to be
off the ground or between each other?
Yeah.
Well, I think there has to be a half a tefach in between because that was the space from one to the wall.
Perhaps.
Right. So we did see at the end of the mission, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says everything goes according to the dirt. If it's good dirt, then you can fit more. If you have worse dirt, then you won't be able to. Yes, in theory, you'd like to be able to fit 4 along the wall, but if the soil is very loose, then it won't hold. But however, this cute little picture that Rav Huna Bar Yeshua had you picture of Rav Huna Bar Yeshua, that is Barusi. That's a mistake. Why is that? Well, we can take out our calculators. Michli. Kol amsa b'revia amsa. So kol amsa b'revia amsa v'trei chumsha b'achsunya. Right. So now, anytime you have, we'll bring out our Pythagorean theorem. Right. So anytime you have a square and the 2 sides are even. So how long is that diagonal or a triangle, right? You got a square, right? So we have a square. Let's say one side is 8 c squared, right? Pythagorean theorem. So you have 8 over here, and then you got 8 over here. Okay. Now, so you have 8 over here. 8. How long is the diagonal? So we say for every 1 amma, right? It's 1.4 is the diagonal. Okay. So it's there's no pi. No, 1.4. No, 1.4. No pi in this case. So in this case, so you multiply 8 by 0.4, right? Would end up to be 13.2 or 13 and 1 chaimish. Excuse me, 11. 11. Sorry about that. Sorry. 11, right? So
with 8 times 0.4.
Well,
what did you say? 8 times
8. Yeah, 8 times 1.4.
Right.
Exactly. Assume it's 11.2.
Okay.
Right, 11.2, which would be 11 and 1/5 One Chaimesh Am. Okay, now. So let's go back. So Kami Havilu, how many is there each side? What is the square? Timni Bechad, right? So now so it's Timni, so it's 8 and 8, right? This is the square according to Rabbi Shimon, because he says they're 8 long and goes 8 out. So Bechad Sri V'chumsha, which comes out to 11 and 1/5. So heichi mishkafasla. Now, if you're taking, they're all like going the same angle, like a palm branch. Okay, so basically, you have a distance of 11.1 within theoretically, right? You should have 8 kvarim in a space of 11.2 amos, right? 11 1/5, right? So how could you have? So 8 is each kever, and you're supposed to have an amma in between each one. Right. So how you're going to need a minimum of 15 because 8 and 7 in between plus the edges, right? So a minimum, you're 15, 16. It must be a mistake. The boy is saying, or you can say this, you go back to what we said earlier. How could you have the corner one? Beneathly, maybe we're talking about not a full size, not a full size grave, but a nafil stillborn, and stillborn didn't necessarily need the full width of the kever. So as we'll soon see later on. So Akanami benefili, so to over here, maybe we'll say the one at the corner is also a nafil. So Tanan Hassam, we learned over there. Now, new case, 3 lines from the bottom. Next fun case, which we'll build off this. Hamaitzi meis mushkaf kedarko. Now, one finds a body that was buried the normal way that a body is buried, right? Buried lying down, right? Arms either on the side or on the on the body. It didn't appear that the body was dumped there. So if the body was dumped there, then of course it was not placed there as a permanent person. Might have just died there or whatever. So it's not a permanent resting area. But if you find someone that appears to be, buried properly, nevertheless, it's only one, and it's not known to be in a Beis HaKvaros. So you're allowed to go ahead and remove the body and the dirt around it to go ahead and rebury the body in a Beis HaKvaros. And so to Shnayim, 2, right? 2 is not a Beis HaKvaros. You can go ahead and remove it, and the area is tahor, and you go ahead and remove it to a Beis HaKvaros. That's with Sasan. And they also have to lose dirt. However, Matzah shloisha, you find 3 bodies. Some if it's between, let's say you find 3 bodies, and if it's within the area of 4 to 8 amos, hare ze shchuna kvaros. This is considered to be a shchuna, an area of kvaros. In other words,
it needs to be 5 amos, 1 amos each plus 1 in the middle. So 4 work.
I mean,
3 bodies.
Right. So if
it says between 4 and 8, then it should be between 5.
4 by 8 goes by the Mishnah.
We'll soon see the Mishnah. Right? The Mishnah was what's it called from 6 to 8. In other words, that they were found parallel to each other, and the distance from the edges was not less than 4.
Less than 1 between them.
Right. So in this case, if it was less than 4, then it's too close, right? So it has to be more than 4, right?
It's 4.
So 4.5, right? If it was 5, let's just say 5, right? Because then you have 1, 1, 1, right? Well, it would be 5. So then it would be right. There would have to be less than. So let's see. So the Gemara is going to ask us. So Amish b'nei marba ad shmona harei ze shchuna kvaros. Right. So then you see, it must have been one of these crypts that we discovered, and therefore we have to basically go back and start calculating across. So we have to go ahead and check 20 amos. Now, why 20 amos? So I'll just give you the quick understanding right now. If you look at back, let's say look at the picture from the Mishnah, or from the Mishnah, Kufala, right? So let's just say, let's look at the top picture of the Rabbanim, okay? Let's say you find the 2 graves over there, right? So in theory,
Where you talking about the Aleph?
That one, right? On Kuf Aleph? Kuf Aleph, I'm an Aleph. Go to the next page. Yeah, that one. So let's say you find on the left, right? So you would have, now, when you find a kever, you don't know, is this part of a larger basic photos? So we got to check each way. Why 20? Because if you go across, we'll soon see the Gemara is going to ask on 20, but you'll see where is the other ones that are facing it. That's all the way across that crypt, plus another chatzir, plus another crypt, Okay, so it's going to be the total there. That's why 20 amos, because in theory, if this is one end, that's the other end. Now, if this is the short end and there's let's say the three opposite, then you'll find it within 20 amos. But you have to go ahead and check up to 20 amos. If you check up to 20 amos and nothing's there, then you know certainly that there's no basic kvar. So you have to check up to 20. We'll soon see what the number 20 is. The Gemara is going to ask. Now, if they went ahead and if they find one at the end there, then once again, you have to go ahead and check another 20 amos because it could be a whole series of basic kvaras here. Sure, glad the davar because there's reason to believe because we already found one group of bodies and I found another one. If we would just found this one to begin with, then we would have been able to just go ahead and remove this one body and along with its earth. Now, let's go ahead and analyze this price. So, Amar Mar. So, first issue is Mi'arba.
There's a Mishnah, isn't it?
Which?
What you just read. It's not prices.
Let's see. It could be. Yeah. Yeah, Tanan. Yes, there was a Mishnah in. Yeah, as he learned it. It's Oilos.
It's in Oilos, right?
Perik Tazai and Mishnah Gimel. And also.
It's in two places.
In Nazir, also. Yeah, Nazir Safbal. Right now. So, we mentioned over there. 4 to 8. Now, money. Whose opinion is this? Rabbanon. If it's the Rabbanon, Amri Dalit al Sheish. He says it's 4 by 6, right? So how can you find something that's up to 8? And Rabbi Shimon Amar Sheish al Shmona, right? Why 4 should be 6, right? So Gemara says Li'aylam Rabbi Shimon. It's really Rabbi Shimon V'hai Tana, who is actually a different Tana who understood Rabbi Shimon. The Tanya we learn in a brisa, Matz and Ritzufin. Let's say you find a bunch of bodies together, right, all next to each other, almost like it's like a
You don't have
pit,
the Amma
a bunch of
between.
bodies. There's no amas in between, what's it called? A group burial, right? A public burial. Vein b'nei and meidal amas had and there's no 4 to 8 in between them. Yesh lahen tfusa ve'en lahem shchus kfaros. Says the Rabbanan, they were obviously just put there not as their final resting area, resting place, and therefore you can go ahead and remove them along with the dirt and go ahead and have them resettled into a basic kfaros. And Rishim ben Yehuda, I mean Rabbi Shimon ben Yehuda is his name, Rabbi Shimon. Rein es hamtzayin ki'ilu einan. We view, let's say there's 5 bodies there. We don't view all the other bodies. We have the 2 ones on the end, and we have, let's say, 1 in the middle to make it 3. And we see that basically, if there's from one end to the other, there's basically between 4 to 8, and there's 1 in the middle. So now it's considered to be a shchunas, and that's considered to be a basic kfaros, and the other bodies that were there were dumped in afterwards. In other words, those were not considered to be part of it. Those were dumped in afterwards, and therefore it is considered a basic kfaros. We just threw in bodies afterwards. So that was that price. Now, it said over there 4 to 8. So B'maya Kinta, Rabbi Shimon, he said like Rabbi Shimon. So therefore we see there's one clearly like Rabbi Shimon who says 4 to 8. Fine. But now let's go back to our mission. We said before, Amos Sefer, the Sefer says, you go ahead and you check 20 amos. So money. Whose opinion is this? Rabbi Shimon, if it's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, estimate Havi, it should be 22. Why? Because we said before, each crypt is 8 by 6. So if you're going the other distance to see the other side of the chutzner, it should be 8 plus 6 plus 8. And that's 22, right? So that's 22. So how do you get that? And Rabbanon, and if it's the Rabbanon, so Timnisari Havi, it should only be 18. It should be, right, because it's 4 by 6. So it should be 6 plus 6, right? Because that middle area is 6 by 6, and then another 4 by 6. 6, 6, 6, 18. So the answer is Li'aylam Rabbanon. He really is depending on the Rabbanon. You could go in the Badik Ba'achsuna. Really, because over here, the first one, we go ahead and we check it by a diagonal. Right, we check it by a diagonal, break out your Pythagorean theorem. So if your space is 4 by 6, your space is 4 by 6. 4 squared is 16. 6 squared is 36. 16 plus that is 52. Square root of 52. So I know the square root of 49 is 7. So it's 7 and change. Okay, 7.1, 7.2. So rounding that up is 8. So therefore it gets 8. So that area was checked by a diagonal because if there was one next to each other like that, you could go ahead and miss it. So therefore we want to go ahead and check the first on a diagonal. So Gemara said,
It's like a TV screen when they say it's like with
Yeah, right, across. Yeah.
Right.
When we are Bachsanya, hard now Bachsanya, but the fact is, it was in a what's it called, a diagonal. So should the other box also be on a diagonal? The other crypt, and it should be 8, 6, and 8.
Yeah.
So our answer is it's an obvious. Gemara says no. Once you see that there was nothing buried, that there was nothing was done different, and therefore the first diagonal came up short. Therefore, the second one you do not have to go ahead and check it in a diagonal. So we don't say that two of them were done. You have to do the second one in a diagonal. Turn the page. So Rav Sheisha Bereid Rav Idi Omar Li'elam Rabbi Shimon. Really, it's the opinion of Rabbi Shimon. We're going back to the 20s. Really, Rabbi Shimon, right? So it really should be 868. But the first one was that of Nephils, of stillborns, and therefore a stillborn did not need a full size crypt. They only made it out to basically a 6 long. Gemara says, but maybe the other side is also an Eiffel. So Gemara says no, and therefore it should be Tim Yisari, it should be 18. Havi. So Gemara says no, no, you only say that there's only one that's done for stillborn, but there's not all multiple done by stillborns that only have one area in a basic forest to bury stillborns. And the Gemara says, "V'rami d'Rabbanan ad Rabbanan, v'rami d'Rabbi Shimon ad Rabbi Shimon." And by the way, we have a contradiction. So we had before, when we looked at the basic pharos, and we see that there were bodies that were there. There were bodies that were there. So we say that the Tanakhama says, right? Thank you for that. All right. So Rabbi Shimon said, let me just find it for a second. So the Tanakhama says we view as if they were all just dumped there and they're not there. We don't remove either way. And Rabbi Shimon says, no, we take out some of them and then we establish the rest. So this seems to contradict something else. That's now we learn in the Mishnah. Let's say you have a vineyard. Now, normally vineyard, something halachic vineyard, nafkamina would be, let's say, planting wheat, right? Or on Kuf Beis, Amad Beis, about to finish the parak. So a vineyard, right? But now a vineyard, the vines are 4 amos apart. But let's say they're closer together. You got 2 that are 4, and then there's stuff in the middle. So kerem, it's not a vineyard. We look at it as all existent. They're all too close. Whoever planted it there did not want it to last. Therefore, it's not a vineyard. No, Harez a kerem, it is a vineyard, right? We say as if the middle ones are not there. That's the opposite. So Kasha the Rabbi Yehuda, the Rabbanan, the Kasha the Rabbi Shimon, the Rabbi Shimon. So the Rabbi Shimon, the Rabbi Shimon, like Kasha, it's not a contradiction. Hasan like not the Inish Adai to Liakir. Over there, right? People don't go ahead and when they plant, they don't plant with the mindset of uprooting it or planting for no reason. So therefore, it was meant to be there. It's not a halachic. What's it called? It's not a halachic vineyard. However, but in the case of the dead, the Mizrami lei ben hashmashos, all right, but sometimes it could be there's almost Shabbos. They got to go ahead and bury the body. They'll bury the body with the mind temporarily, and therefore you're able to go ahead and view those bodies that were there, not to be permanent and as if they weren't there. So therefore, it's not no country to Rabbi Shimon. Since right, it's maneuver for all of them to be close together. It's not the basic kvaros. It's not how it's not kavadik, and therefore it's not a basic kvaros. And as the Meimer Amar, and then also in the case of there with the vineyard, Meimer Amar, Haiminayu the Shapi, maybe he plants all of them. He says, okay, whichever ones will last, I'll take, and whichever ones don't last, I won't take. So therefore, they're all meant to go ahead. So he meant to go ahead and put them there, but the ones that won't pan out, they'll remove out, and therefore he didn't intend to have all of them there. The other ones he would just use for to heat up his oven or whatever. So therefore, in that case, he did plant with intentions of uprooting the weaker ones. So Hajjan Allah, we finished the 6th parak.
Sometimes you're like dying to get to it.
Yeah. Oh, let's see the next one. Yeah.
No fun parents.
Yeah. All right. Fine. All right.
Yeah, you got to. It's a That's exactly. That's what people say sometimes.
All right. So next Mishnah says, "Ha'omer lechaveroi beis kur afar ani meichel lecha." All right. Just 1 minute from the bathroom floor.
Okay.
So we got a little time for a second. I mean, I'll pause it or something. Yeah, take a moment. 1 second.
Take a moment.
Stomach. I've been sick all night. Yeah.
Somebody who cares.
And this morning, early and fast. All right. We are on the 7th parak. Naya Mishnah, Naya parak. So, base kur offer any meichel. A guy says to his friend, "I'm selling you a base kur offer." Offer is the key word here. A base kur is an area. Now, the sizes basically come as the Rashbam brings down. We know that sasayim 2 saw is the size of the courtyard in the Mikdash, which was 50 by 100, which is 5,000. So 1 saw is 2,500. There are 30 saw in a kur, so 30 times 2,500 is 75,000.
Pretty significant field.
So yes, a large size, 75,000. So that's 30 saw, and then we'll get later. A kav is going to be the main thing, and there's 6 kav. I think 6 kav per saw, right?
Big core is approximately like
Right.
an acreage approximately.
Yeah, I guess 75,000 square amos. Yeah, not even larger. An acre is 42,000 or something like that square feet, and amos are larger, so it's probably a couple acres. You had did you need it on your brokerage test? Right? Yeah. Yeah. So how you the chaver base core offering meichel? How you sham the kai mamuki masar tfachim aslaim gvay masar tfachim? If there were, let's say, crevices or cracks or ditches that are deeper than 10, or rocks that protrude more than 10 off the ground, do not get measured with it, right? I'm selling you afar, right? What is afar? Dirt. What's dirt? For growing, right? So you can't grow on peaks and valleys. So therefore, those are not included. So when you have your big field and there's some big rocks and crevices, so you got to take that out of the measurement. So you probably got to give me 75,532 ounces, right? Like base core afar base core afar like a base core, not exact. So in that case, since it was like that, approximate, so therefore, even if there are rocks higher than 10, or crevices and ditches lower than 10, these are go along and measured with.
Even if it's the
We'll
majority.
get to that.
Well,
Even they're allowed.
Is the big
Even the majority, we'll get to that too. We'll get to all these good questions.
Okay, they're
Is it
undefined.
associated with how much produce you can grow in it? Is that
So normally, you're right. Yeah. So I mean,
if it's big core, you have to be able to grow a certain
right, but it came to the point where this is the standard area. It's not like if something is more, let's say better land, better land, it could sell more in a smaller area. So that is already established. Based upon that, it's like when we say, like a shear of eating is like a kazais, or techte, whatever it is, the amount to eat, piece of bread, right? So, now, so let's see the Gemara. So Tanan Hasman over there. So very, very, very similar Mishnah where it says over there, Hamakdish there the b'shas hayeva. So one goes ahead, he wants to be makdish. Wants to show gratitude. And he says, what? I'm making my field hektish. Thank you, Hashem. During the Yovel, so when the Yovel is counts, so nice and low, the base zera chaymer sarim. So the amount to grow a chaymer sarim, which is similar to the amount to grow a kur, let's say barley. So it's chamishim shekel kesef. So
that's for the peak year on this.
Right. So we know the rate of payments is basically 50 for the full 49 years. So basically each year, and then you deduct it. You prorate, right? So you prorate it. So every year you take off 1 shekel and a pundaya. right? Selling pudayo and basically per year.
That's Midoraisa.
Midoraisa.
Yeah.
So that's what you do. So Hayusham Nikoyamu. So the guy does his field from day one. First day of the Yovel, he got 49 years after, full value. Now, Hayusham Nikoyamu looking at Tfachim in the field. What do you got there? You got some cracks, and there's some ditches that are deeper than 10 and rocks that are bigger than 10. Those are not included. All right. So it seems to work out with what we said last time. It's not included. Things are too big, too small. If it's less than that, it is included. So the Gemara says, wait, I don't understand. Time out. Why aren't the rocks that are bigger than 10 and the ditches that are lower than 10 included? Let those, okay, your makdish your field. So those aren't included? Okay. So let that be included as its own identity, not as a place where the mikdash will go ahead and grow crops and sell it to the public, but let that be an area, right, on its own, right? If you want to say, so maybe you want to say, oh, maybe the minimum amount to be makadish something for the fields, right, is it has to be the size of a base core. Tani, we actually learned in the Rices, the word says the pasuk has the word sodet, seems a little bit extra. It says there's that's the large amount of kesef. Ainly ella shekdish binazet. Benayin the rabbi is lesach v'chatzi lesach so tarka v'chatzi tarka. How do we know that lesach, which is like a half a core and half of that, or a saw, all right, which is a third of that, right, which is 1/30 of the original, right, and tarka half of that, v'chatzi tarka. It says the word sada to include even a smaller amount. So once again, back to the question: why can't these rocks or these ditches that are more than 10 be included or be on their own, be makdish to their mikol makom? Right? Sada mikol makom. So Amar Rav Ukva Bar Chama Hacha b'nekai melei mai maskina Talav b'nei Zrianino. It's not the fact that it's on a rock and it's higher up, and therefore you can't go ahead and plow it together, or it's in a ditch lower and then you have to plow it separately, and therefore it's a separate field. It's that it's not plowable. It's the ditches are full of water, and the rock you can't go ahead and plant on. Those are not included. The slime. It says the cracks are similar to the rocks. Shmami no, it must be that they're filled with water, and therefore they're not included. So Gemara says, if that's the case, so even if it's filled with water, right, so that even if it's less than 10, you can't plant it in there, and then it shouldn't be included, right? So our answer is no, hani nagani da'ara mikri, right? These are called like the imperfections of the land. In other words, it's part of the land. It's just an imperfection. They're small, they're part of it. And therefore, shadidara mikra, right? And therefore, they're basically it comes after, it continues with the larger piece of land, even though you might necessarily not to be able to go ahead and plant in it. So that was that mission over there. Now, hacha, what about our mission? So hacha man. What about our case? What's in the case? So So in our case, right, I'm going ahead and selling Alan my land, and I say base core afar, right? And so
Care or without care?
Without. Okay. Now, so and we say that so were those included or not? So in our case, hakamai. So even though they're not full of water. So my time. But what's the reason why? Even if these cracks and crevices are not full of water, it's not included in the sale. Why is that? My timer. Because Alan doesn't want to go ahead and buy something that's on all different levels. He wants one field. He wants 2 or 3 different level fields with ditches and crevices and heights. So therefore, it's not included. So I understand the Mishnah says deep down like a crevice and or like a rock. Just like the rocks are not for planting, right? So to the crevices, right, they should be filled with water. Mashma, only because they're filled with water, that's why it's not included. But if it wasn't filled with water, even if it's below 10, it should be included in the sale. So the Gemara says, no. When did it write rocks? Similar to ditches, kikitani, Duma, the siloim, apakas mikan. That's only the smaller ones, the ones that are less than 10. The ones that are less than 10, those are included. Even if those do have water in it, those are still included because they're less than 10. That would be included in the sale. But in terms of the larger ones, that those, even whether or not they have water, are not included in the sale. Fine. Let's get the parentheses. Rabbi Yitzchak. Now you guys ask me, what if the field is full of rocks? What's going on here? So Rabbi Yitzchak Trashim Shamru base arba kaf. Right. So now that is 4 kaf. Now remember, okay. You said there's 6 kaf in a what's it called? In a saw. And there's 30 saw. So basically it's like 2/3 of one. So it's basically 2/3 of 1/45th, right? 1/45th makes sense, right? 30, 2/3 of that. Yeah. 1/45th can be rocks. All right. Now, as you said, well, if the smaller rocks are included, so maybe it could be a majority of all the rocks. And here's your 75,000 square amos. No, it could only be Tashamru base arba kav. Only if you total them all together, only the area of 4 kav. And Rav says, right, these are the ones that are included, but it can't be all of it. You know what I'm saying? So therefore, it gets a limit, only that amount. And and also that they have to be pretty spread out, right? They have to be spread out at least around 5 kaf, right? At least the area of 5 kaf. But if they're too concentrated, then it would not work. And right? This is only, he says, no. He says it has to be upon the majority of the field, not 4, right? 4 kav in a 5 kav area is pretty concentrated. It has to be a majority area. So Rav Chia Baraba, so Ruvan b'miyata, umiyata b'ruba. What about, all right, Mao? What about if you have the majority of most of the 4 kavs are in a small area, or you have a small amount of the rocks, right? They're in a majority of the area, right? So what's
all concentrated, but the rest of the field is all good. We're going to start moving.
then what you can do is, since the area is not usable, you got to give me a different area to be included. In other words, if I can't go over this area, then you have to give me an area that I could use. 8 o'clock. 8 o'clock. No, because they send out 2 different schedules. So it's always a half hour before. So if we were going to do it, we'd have to learn at 6:15 this morning. So instead of making everyone get up at 6:15, we wake up in the 5s. So we decided it was today is like the one day. Huh? Yeah. But today could have because no coffee. I had other issues going on today. So the Gemara says Tega does not give a teretz in this case in terms of being too concentrated. Because if the area is too concentrated, the buyer can just say, you know what, this 5 kav area is too concentrated. Give me a different 5 kav area, in order to total the amount. Sure. So boy, Rabbi Yirmiyah, so says Rabbi Yirmiyah from the page, Kashir Mahu. What about if it's like a shear, right? A shear is like a bracelet, right? A bracelet that goes around. So if I'm plowing, I can't plow up and down because the rocks, right? The rocks, I got to go like around the rocks is more difficult. I got to lift it over, kashir mao or kashura mao. Or let's say it's like a row. I every time I go back and forth, I have to lift it up. It's tradido mao, or what, like the horns, right? The horns of let's say a chauffeur, right? The little picture on the side that comes up out. Read a lot of Dr. Seuss this weekend. Looks like there's the horns and the Dr. Seuss. The grandkids, right? And then or derech al-kalson, right? What about if it's like a diagonal back and forth, like a zigzag? Mahu. So what are these cases? These cases seem, if the concentration is there, it seems perhaps be maybe too difficult on the buyer. So all these end up in a tekel. So Tana. So if there was let's say a rock, right, on by itself, I feel kol shu. And even if it was just one over there, it was small. You don't go ahead and start to measure that. That's not included. It's right by the border. You don't include that. Even though normally if it was in the middle of the field, it would be included. But once it's on the side, we're not starting from rocks that are not plantable. And if it was right next to the border, any amount, once again, right? Since it was next to it, so therefore it's considered like a border on the boundary, and therefore you don't start from there. You started from within there. That does not get included in the measurement. And boy, Rav Papa, Muvsak offer bein time. Let's say there was a small amount of dirt in between that, the rock and the Meitzer, right? Right, the rock and the heritage, right? The boundary and the rock, right? So Mao, what do we say in that case? So once again, take it. The Gemara does not give a teretz in that case. And by Rav Ashi, what about Alfar Milamata Milamala, right? Or let's say over here there was dirt underneath, but the rock was Alfar Milamata, but Milamala, right? But the rock was on top, and the rock was on top next to it. But if you remove the rock, you can go ahead and plant underneath it. Or the opposite, Afar milamala, right? You have dirt on top, but underneath it, but shuma milamata, you have the rock underneath it. Once again, it's adjacent to the boundary. Is that included there in the measurement or not? Mahu. Once again, the Gemara ends with a tekel. Fine. Next Mishnah. Let's go. Naya Mishnah. Mishnah says, "Beis kur afar ani meicher lecha." A guy says, once again, I'm selling you a base core afar for dirt for planting. I'm selling to you. Mida b'chevel. He goes there and he measures it with his rope, right, to make sure. So pichas kolshu. If it's, remember he told him base core, not kid base core. He said base core. So he measures it. Pichas kolshu. It's a little bit off. It's not 75,000. It's 74,300. Pichas kolshu. Then you knock it. Go ahead and take off the price. Paisir kolshu. If let's say there was extra, then yachzir, right? Then the buyer in this case, you have to return the land, right? Too much land, right? We'll soon see. V'malmar and chasen yaser. But if originally he says I'm gonna sell you the land, right? More or less base core, right? Even if it was a quarter kav per saw. Now remember, a quarter kav, right, is 1/4 of something which is 1/6, so 1/24th, right? So a quarter, right? So a quarter kav per saw. So we say in the case, piches rav saw. Oh, how you say rav saw? If he, let's say, it was less than that or more than that, so he gil. It's a good thing. In other words, the sale stands. However, Yaisim again, if it was more than 1/24th, it was 2/24ths, 3/24ths, whatever it was, Yaseh Cheshbon. Go ahead, and they have to go ahead and basically tally up and make his cheshbon. So mahu machzilo. So what does he return to him? Mos. He returns money to him. In other words, we don't say like this. You get this land back because you say it was 75,000, or 65,000. We don't give him a small parcel of land. Why? Because once he has, he won't be able to do anything with it. So therefore, we'll just make it that I sold you all this land, and therefore we'll make a cheshbon to him. That imratza machzilo karka. But if he wants, he returns the land to him, right? If the seller wanted it. So why do we say return the money? So in order that the seller, right, should have a better position to sell, right? If he doesn't, if he just has a small piece of land, he won't be able to sell that. So at least he sold all of his lands together. Because, but however, if the amount that they have, they left it, let's say if it was a field and it was 9 kav, or a vagina or a garden, right, smaller area base chatzi kav, then it was only a half a kav, or a kadivri or a kiva base rav, that would be a quarter kav, right? Machsalos a karka, then he can return the land because that is a sufficient plot of land for him to go ahead and sell below. Right. Place a rova bilvad umakzer ella es kol ha'meiser. It's not just the extra amount, right? We saw the Shiloh maybe a week or two ago, right? Actually, extra amount, but he doesn't just make it back to 1/24th. Rather, anything that was above and below the 75,000 or the agreement, that amount was is returned. And let's just go. We got a couple more lines. Say boilo. Just want to officially get caught up. We'll be a little ahead. Iboilu. Base core stoma mine. The guy says he's selling a base core, right? He doesn't say more or less, right? Right. So in other words, base core afar. First case is base core afar, right?
No, he says meet up with right?
No, I think they just measured it afterwards, right?
That was
base core afar ni meicher lecha.
I thought that was part of the statement.
Base core offer any meichlecha mida b'chel. Klamar b'im tzimtzum ni meichlecha so that sheyesh a base core offer kama shemeidin b'midas hachevel. All right, could be.
Either way.
So let's see. Right. So we'll see the Gemara. We'll see whether we could agree. Let's see. Or all right, and in the other case, the Gemara says he said more or less, right? So what? Let's say he just says base core stump. So tashma base core afarni meichelacha, right? Right, amida b'chevel. So over there, right, like you say, so he says over there that I sold you a base core afar. That is, to be exact. In that case, we say pachos kosher yinakeh or yes to kosher yachzer. In those cases, you take back mashma hasta. If he just says base core, behen chein chaser ein yaser dami, right? If I just say base core, then it's not exact like a rope. So Gemara says, well, aim a seifo. Let's look at the seifo. Seifo says v'maimer lo hein chaser ein yaser. If he says I'm selling you a base core more or less, he throws in the word hein yes, ein chaser ein yaser. If you look at the saw. Even if he makes it, if he was less than a quarter of a kava, or it's more by a quarter kaf or a saw, it works. Mashma, only the case it works is because the guy says more or less. Hastam, if he just says base poor, kamida bechevel dummy. It's like I said exactly, like measured by a rope. So rather over here, we can't learn out from our Mishnah which way it is. But Lachar, yes, Azi, it would be like you were saying. That was the lashon of the Mishnah. In other words, when exact to a rope, and therefore it can't be off of that, give or take. Because allowed to be off of that. What is it? Stam? We don't know. That's Hashem. We will answer tomorrow. So we'll stop here. Shreich, everybody. Everybody have a wonderful day. Have kindness and.
I'll take your watch.